Alright, y'all. Hello and welcome back. We're taking a look at the infrastructure differences. It's hard to classify because Europe is really big, right? Lots of different countries, lots of different styles of architecture, infrastructure, that type of thing. But take this with a grain of salt. We're going to try and compare, of course, versus the U.S., which also varies greatly depending on which state and city you're in. Now, generally, we're very car-centric here. We kind of already know that in the U.S., and even that I have some issues with. Now, I've had good experiences in some states and cities and worse in others. Particularly here in Illinois, it's just not great. Driving here, for being so car-centric, somehow driving here is not pleasant either. So it feels like they're failing at the one thing we're supposed to be able to do, which is drive. So yeah, let's take a look at how cities are set up, public transportation differences, and why we tend to fall behind on all the rest of this stuff while other countries have pretty well-established systems set up.
One of the biggest differences between Europe and America is how the cities are laid out. American cities are in large part modeled on a Roman design, which, to be more specific, is an artificial grid layout. As an example, this is Timgrad, which is an abandoned Roman city in Algeria.
It's pretty
interesting. At face value, a grid pattern makes a lot of sense. Theoretically, it's simpler to navigate within. And you may even be duped into thinking that it's shorter to get from point A to B. But this is actually not the case. And the reason is that grids go against the natural balance of cities and organic development.
You would think on paper, a grid pattern seems kind of nice and clean. But in reality, I feel like in practice, they don't work very well because you end up having long travel times in cities, right? We've all made the joke here in the U.S. that you can type in something into your GPS and it can be literally only 4.6 miles away, which is not long in a car, right? You think cars cruising at, 50 miles per hour, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like 4.6 miles away is not long. But in most cities, because of lots of factors, instead of that taking you literally, 4 minutes or something, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, it takes 35 minutes to go 4 miles because of traffic, our infrastructure, things like that. It's very frustrating. Also, grids tend to be very spread out, it looks like. When you zoom in on the map on cities like Phoenix or Chicago or Jacksonville, Florida or something, right? Like these cities the footprint they have, right, is huge. Look at Dallas, Fort Worth. They get so spread out. And I don't know. Seems like that's the driving factor in like long commute times, even in a short distance. And it's pretty rough.
Example, this is Oklahoma City, which, due to its grid pattern, forces everything out, decreasing density. By decreasing density, you are increasing travel times and wasting more people's time. Whereas most European cities developed organically over centuries.
Yes.
This is the city of Vienna, which started out very small in square miles, but extremely dense and tightly packed. And as it grew, the roads and streets extended out from the center organically according to the needs of the people who lived in the city, better obeying topography and the natural flow and development of an urban center, making it a much more personable, much more human urban landscape.
That's pretty interesting. Okay, look at this real quick. I didn't even mean to pause it here, but look. This is Minneapolis, Minnesota, big city. You could see like where it's very dense, right? City center area. And then you can see all the grid. These are all streets. Your eyes are not deceiving you if you're not from here and you're like, what is that? The natural landscape is just covered in these grid streets. And look how far out they go from Minneapolis, the actual downtown of the city. They go way down here. They go way over here off camera. They go way up here, right? And you get this mega metropolitan area. And that's just how it is here. I mean, it's something you learn to get used to, and it is what it is. As a singular person, it doesn't feel like there's much you could do about this here. But you see why we rely on cars so much, and even then, it doesn't seem to be very fast, right? It's one of those things where, like, when you're on an open road in the U.S. on a road trip, say you leave Minneapolis and you want to go over to somewhere in South Dakota, feels like you cover a lot of ground on the interstate. And that's something I think we do well here is interstates. But once you get to the city centers, once you get to these, metropolitan areas, that's when it kind of falls apart, right? So you feel like you cover a lot of ground on the interstate in 1 hour, but then the same person could only cover a few miles in 1 hour if they're in this megalopolis. Anyway, get a look at that, and then let's look at Vienna again.
Much more human.
Much more different, right? And all these cities, if they're like this, are usually of course, very unique in European countries. You know, Vienna looks different than Paris. It looks different than London. Looks different than Prague, right? Like they're all a little more unique because of this organic growth. They obviously had an advantage with the historical way that they grew. This was kind of a cool way to see how a European city grew. And, you know, the organic growth it had is a lot different. And obviously on foot, on a bus, in a car, you know, it's just going to be a lot different of an experience driving through Vienna than versus Minneapolis. Some of the comments are interesting. We have this person that says, I get lost easier in American cities because of the grid system. In Europe, every street looks different, so it's easier to remember where you have just come from and make sure you're going the right way. I could see maybe some truth to this because the problem is in American cities also, it seems like a lot of them look the same when you're down on the ground. Now, of course, there's unique things and unique buildings and landmarks in different cities, but from a general sense, they look a little too similar sometimes. And then, of course, each block, it's hard to decipher, right? It's just, you could get lost if you're walking. If you do walk, the rare person that walks in the city, you walk like, you know, 8 blocks this way and 6 blocks that way. Like, it's going to be hard to, by memory only, walk back to where you started. It's just simply hard to remember on your way back. So I could see some truth to this. If you look at Barcelona, though, it manages to be relatively dense and very walkable city while still being grid-based. So there's an example. Like, you can see still grid-based cities in Europe, but they seem to be different, right? They do a better job at still being walkable and maybe keeping that population density in a more core area, not so spread out like somewhere like Dallas, Fort Worth, or Chicago. And then finally, this is a simplified way. It's not grids, it's how we use the space. You could go down a whole rabbit hole of like how kind of wild and odd zoning laws are in the U.S., and especially in different cities as well, right? There's some bizarre cities with really weird zoning laws like Los Angeles or Chicago, for example. So that causes some issues over time as well. European cities have underground parking lots, so there's more space for people on the streets. You know, that's really cool. We do have underground parking in the U.S. I've seen it. I want to say I've seen it in Chicago. Yeah, I have. But it's rare. It's only in a select couple spots I know of, and to be fair, it's not in almost any other city I've seen. So maybe like Chicago and New York, I can see doing this. But then again, they're thought of as more of like European influenced cities for U.S. standards anyway. I mean, taking the whole U.S. as a whole and a lot of other cities here, it's rare. You're not going to find underground parking lots very often, if at all. And of course, even parking garages, which are better than having a big spread out parking lot, right? They're still relatively rare. It just depends on the city. So I kind of agree with this, that if European cities have a little more priority on underground parking lots and more compact parking, of course, it's going to leave more space for people on the streets and a better, more organic flow and pedestrian areas. This is something that I think is really cool about cities outside the U.S. And unfortunately, I wish, we did a little more often here. Bro, the more I see, the more the U.S. looks like a third world country with a Gucci belt. Pardon me, I do have a cough this week. It's annoying, but we're getting through it. Yeah, I don't know. It does sometimes feel like that. I hate to admit it.
Why do you think it's so expensive to build road and transit projects here in the United States? Think over-design, inefficient project management, and complicated politics. While other countries can build stuff really quickly, in America we made it very easy to kind of block and object to projects.
You know what? This needs to be said. I've talked about this with family members before, and this doesn't get said on videos a lot.
I think it's so
I feel like, or on social media in general.
That's
really what it comes down to, right? The U.S. with, again, the zoning laws and then all these, like, the lobbyists, different industries, mismanaged projects so bad, right? They sometimes they'll draw up something like a gem, and then it just never gets done right or never gets finished, right? There's so much... Why is there so much stalemate here when it comes to this kind of stuff?
And complicated politics.
Yeah, politics always plays into it. Politics here are just an absolute mess, man. I really, it's why I hate it. I hate politics in the U.S. It's so terrible.
Countries can build stuff really quickly. In America, we made it very easy to kind of block and object to projects.
Yeah, too many things just get blocked. And I have so many stories, even in my local area, that would take too long to share here, but trust me, there is some crazy stuff. I feel like people from other countries would, kind of be shocked to hear about how many awesome things could have happened and got blocked for the stupidest reasons. It's really weird. It almost feels like self-sabotage in some U.S. cities a lot.
Destroying the passenger rail lines in America directly caused every single livability issue that we currently face today as a nation. You wouldn't know it today, but at one point in time, the U.S. had the world's largest passenger rail service with over 1 billion customers a year. And at one point in time, the Pennsylvania Rail Company was literally the largest company in the world. And this
pending that this is true, I did not freaking know that. Whoa, hold up.
Power was reflected in both the trains themselves,
Those
which
are
had
awesome.
Art Deco styling, as well as the architectural marvels of train stations that were placed in the middle of city centers within walking distance of all of the things that you would need in that city. And then the Fire Nation attacked. Specifically, this man, Henry Ford, and other automotive bigwigs started lobbying city planners to start constructing their cities not around people, and definitely not around trains, but around the automobile. And what we got was this.
That's what I said
huge
earlier.
Parcels of every single human civilization is devoted not to like gardens, not the parks, not to even like office buildings or money-making centers, but the parking and the cars.
Yeah, look at that picture, right? And I know it's handpicked, but it's really relevant of a lot, almost all U.S. cities, right? We need more green space. We need more trees. Look at this heat island soaking concrete mess, right? I mean, the heat is just hitting that and heating everything up, just pillowing there, right? It's crazy, man. And it really comes down to, again, like, hearing that actually as an American is frustrating. See, I always have said this before. One of the themes here is I always hear like, oh, best nation on earth, blah, blah, blah. And I got tired of hearing that. I do think we're a great place and we're, one of the best, depending on just certain things, but we're not the best. And I think it's ignorant to say stuff like that, especially given how this place really is. I think we should strive to be the best, and we're not doing that, I feel like. And unfortunately, it seems like over time, especially since like 70s, 80s to now, industries got big and the leaders got big, and it just, they ended up kind of suppressing a lot of things that could have evolved and really helped us out as a whole compete when it comes to these transportation things and how cities are designed. Look at the automobile, right? I mean, we're so car-centric. We have millions and millions of automobiles here. I'm a car guy, by the way. I love cars. I'm glad we have lots of cars in one sense, right? But in reality, I would like to have a couple cool cars, but also have some other options, especially going to different cities. So I kind of see it both ways. And I mean, I could be a car guy and still not like what I'm seeing here, right? Like that is just, where's the greenery, man? Where's a little more flavor to this city? I mean, there's so lack of nature here. It almost looks like the Death Star, like in the original Star Wars, when you see like they're going down, it's just all gray, like because it's a big space station, like that's what this looks like almost.
Car parks, places where cars get to go and play. Because everything is devoted around car world, nothing is devoted around human world. So there's nothing within walking distance within most cities. Yeah. You literally cannot operate if you do not have a car. Car-centric city planning and debilitating regulations that were put on the rail industry at the height of its power resulted in this, look how they massacred my boy image. And what did we get for this trade? Statistically, 25 minutes of time in this every single day for the rest of your life. But I don't know.
Now, what's funny, a little weird editing mistake here. He's actually showing the UK because you can see the signs, London, Heathrow, right, Oxford. So obviously traffic exists in some big cities worldwide, especially in Europe as well. Now, I've heard of London traffic. I've heard of Paris traffic. So, this exists to an extent. But as a whole, we know that there's much more options and a better chance of getting around without solely relying on a car in a lot of other cities throughout the world than, unfortunately, cities here in the U.S. That's an interesting video. I can't believe that we used to have passenger rail. I've always heard that, but I didn't hear it to that extent. That was actually really legit. And we're talking 1 billion customers a year. That's pretty wild. That's proof that we just got, that just got knocked out of the game completely. Like we had the potential, right? And it got squashed by big industry. Very frustrating.
Imagine if one of the richest countries in the world, if not the richest, United States, had trains that could take you from San Francisco to Los Angeles in a matter of 1 or 2 hours.
That'd be incredible.
Like we have here in Spain.
Be incredible.
Wow,
man.
What a country we could be. With the amount of taxes we pay in the United States and the amount things cost in general. How are you telling me that the greatest country in the world can't have a high-speed rail system like the one that exists in Europe? To me, it's unfathomable. What do you guys think?
Well, I tell you what we hear here in the U.S. when anyone does have the sense to bring this up. We always hear it'll be too expensive. We just can't do it. It's going to take too long to build. Blah blah blah. It's funny, right? Now, what's funny is we actually currently, even in 2025, have arguably the most extensive rail network in the world. But of course, this is only for freight and cargo. So it's odd that they replaced passenger travel opportunities and strictly for freight and cargo, instead of developing both, a need for both. It's very frustrating, to think if I could take a speed train from Chicago to St. Louis or something, right? And instead of having to do a 4.5-hour drive in a car, 5 hours probably more realistically, you could get that down to what, an hour and a half? If it was like a high-speed train, maybe 2 hours, let's say, you're still cutting it in half and then some. Like he said, San Francisco to Los Angeles, the possibilities are endless. It's very frustrating to think about. Ugh. And of course, this is honestly the truth. Like, people hate to hear it, but it's the truth. I know, because in America, all our taxes go to corporate welfare. Yeah. And military budget as well. Look, like, we have a great military. I know our military, is tied to a lot of other countries and, helps out and stuff. I think that's great. But, I feel like we spend so much on military here. It's become too much, and it's a little sloppy, right? It's like, whoa, what are we doing here? I feel like we could easily cut our military budget in half and still have the biggest military budget in the world. I think we'd be okay, right? Come on, man. Come on now. I mean, yeah, churches in Europe are going to be peak for sure, right? There are some pretty wicked cathedrals and churches in the U.S. as well. Of course, they're just not as historic. I mean, you have some churches that were built or have been built over the course of 300 or 400 years, even more in European countries. So, I mean, it's just, of course, there's going to be more, right? And they're going to be more, incredible looking. How America's infrastructure looks. This is one we have to touch on for its own video sometime. I actually was going to work on this a while ago, and I just haven't gotten to. Bridges here are actually, like, I hate to say it, they're actually kind of really sketchy. Like, I'll defend us when things are taken out of context, but our bridges are bad. Like, and that goes across the board. Some of them are like, why is this even open? This should have been strengthened or rebuilt like decades ago. Kind of scary. Yeah, I mean, these are extreme examples. Yeah, everything's dirty and old school. Yeah, potholes everywhere. True. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Look, I know there's bad sides of town and bad roads and stuff in every country. You go to Italy, you go to France, you go to Poland, like, you're going to find rough places. But let's get real. Like, as a whole, yeah, they're better thought out, especially same with Asian places, right? There's going to be bad parts and incredible parts that seem like decades ahead of us. I agree. I mean, look at Paris here. Paris definitely has rough spots, but it also, as a whole, is still it's an incredible city, right? I mean, look at this at night. It's beautiful. And you're just not going to find a U.S. city that looks like this. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is a little bit on the line of handpicked here. They handpicked some of the worst of the U.S. versus some of the best in Europe and elsewhere. But at the same time, there's some truth to it. Because I'll keep it real with you. 80% of the roads around me look like this. Yeah, they suck. And the best part is somehow Illinois road tax and taxes in general are some of the highest in the nation. And this is what they look like. Yeah, shame on them.
All right, this is a pretty jarring map comparing the U.S. railroad network and Europe's.
Yeah.
And you might be like, oh, of course Europe has more trains. It's smaller. It's covering less area. No. Europe is actually larger than the U.S. in terms of square miles. It's got like about 100,000 square miles on it. So That's not why. It's just Europe is much better designed than the US and prioritizes people over car machines. Like, if you look at the road networks comparing Europe and the US, it's like, wow, the US knows how to have a road.
Yeah, like I said, I think our infrastructure when it comes to highways, right? I think taking road trips, you're generally going to have a decent time. It's just when you get to the cities, it all falls apart. Like, yes, you can go in a car quite easily from Illinois out to California, all the way to Florida, up to New York, right? Like, there's no doubt about it. You can get it done, but that's your only option. That's the problem. Or, of course, we have flights. That's a whole different thing. But, flights, again, you can get anywhere, mostly from big cities. But I hate to say it, flights seem more expensive. And, there's some weird things about it compared to, again, even flying within Europe as a whole. I've looked at that for another video, and your guys' flight prices are much better than ours.
You'd think, oh, that must mean the US doesn't have as much congestion, though. Also not true. The European countries aren't high up in the congestion rankings worldwide.
Ooh, top 12 for congestion. Los Angeles is second worst in the world. Holy smokes, that's bad. Mexico City, number 7. San Francisco, number 12. Otherwise, it's all India and Bangladesh, pretty much, and Nigeria. I don't see any European cities whatsoever. So yeah, congestion, we're definitely, we're up there. We're bad.
It's like, how is Europe less congested, even though it has fewer roads?
Yeah.
It just has much better public transportation.
True.
And it doesn't have all
That's
these
weird.
parking spaces. The US has a parking space epidemic.
Damn,
there are
dude.
250 million cars, but 2 billion parking spaces. That's 8 spaces per car. That's
2 billion parking spaces here? I knew we had a problem with that, but I didn't realize it was that bad. Holy shit, why are there so many parkings? Ooh, I guess so those songs are right? They paved paradise and put up a parking lot.
more area dedicated to parking spaces than to homes.
Look at this is in the Midwest, so the area of the country I live in, and it is sprawl, baby. That's what they do, right? Look at yellow is occupiable buildings. Pink is surface area parking. So look, for every building, look at how much percentage is pink. Look at all the parking. It's insane.
For Cocoa Puffs that people are being squeezed out
Holy
of cities
smokes.
so regulators can make more parking spaces.
Dude.
The funny thing is, when you look at us in like the 1960s, we had way more
I didn't know
trains.
this.
What's up?
Damn.
By the 70s, all these trains just got shut down. With the emergence of the automobile and the plane came the tragic decline of the passenger railroad. Penn Central Railroad declared bankruptcy. Amtrak was created and absorbed some of those, flailing tracks and what.
Look at this, 2024 North American abandoned railroad lines. There's not many abandoned ones in Mexico, just a few. A little bit up here in some Canadian provinces, but most of them in the U.S. Look at how many are abandoned. What the hell, man? I feel like that's pretty eye-opening. Jeez. It's almost one of those things where it's like, I knew it was bad, but it's kind of worse than I thought.
European architecture is 10 times better than America. I'm in Portugal right now, and look at this. All the buildings are old. They haven't updated them in 500 years. The ground is all cobblestone.
Dude, that is awesome, man.
Rock. There's loud music going. There's restaurants in the middle of the street. You don't find this in America. If you got dropped into a random city in America, you would never be able to tell what city you're in because they all look the same.
Yeah.
These ugly buildings that are all boxy and the same design.
Like, when you look at zoomed out pictures of the city, they all look sort of cool and unique in the U.S. I will defend that. But that's not what you see when you're in the city. He's right. If you drop yourself in the middle of a city, blindfolded, and you take a blindfold off, you do that 3 times in 3 different cities, you won't know which one you're in. Like, he's right. When you're in it, they all look relatively the same, kind of generic almost. And this kind of pedestrian area he's walking on looks so cool. In Portugal, man. He's right. There is nowhere in the U.S. that would ever look like that.
Meanwhile, in Europe,
and I know the world's big,
design,
everything's different. That's a good thing to an extent.
The cool roads.
But that is such a vibe,
it's just
man.
amazing.
Look at that.
Why can't America be like this? European architecture.
I mean, there's more history. You know, the older architecture that kind of
Buildings
that all speaks for
old.
itself. But like, this is beautiful, man. The way that you could do this, you don't have to worry about taxis and cars coming and hitting you and shit. This is so freaking cool, man. This is what I look forward to traveling in European cities. This is just awesome. Also, cool that he showed Portugal. I feel like they don't get mentioned a lot in here, and I feel like Portugal looks like a beautiful place. So, shout out Portugal. I'm gonna cut it there, man. That was interesting. That is just a little glimpse of some infrastructure, architecture type differences between the U.S. and Europe, the country of Europe. I kid. Yeah, that was fun. There could be a lot more kind of in-depth kind of said about this stuff, but overall the U.S., man, is just, it's the U.S. It's different, and unfortunately a lot of times it's different in a bad way. But that's the reality here. I think it's pretty wild. I would love to see your thoughts on this. I hope you enjoyed this. I appreciate you being here, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. I'm going to cut it there. My name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker. Until next time, y'all. Catch you later.